What's up, Glory Gang? Welcome back to a brand new, fresh, hot out the oven episode of the Glory Boys podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Darren.
And I'm Austin.
And we're so excited for today. We're going to talk about gear. We got a ton of it. We can't wait to dive in. But before we do, let's roll that intro. So, Austy boy, we got a ton of gear today.
Today?
No, we didn't get any today.
Not today.
No, but every day of the week we've had like boxes.
Yeah, we've been getting gear lately.
Yeah. So it's funny, like in the second or third episode that we ever did, we talked about how Austin always wants to buy gear and I tell him no. Well, somehow he like flipped the script and he's buying all the gear and I say yes and he's just buying it.
Well, it helped that we sold our Ursa.
That's true.
That's where most of it's coming from.
That is also true.
Yeah, we are in a position now, which is great, where we are able to make some purchases.
Just stacks on deck.
Definitely not there yet, but we found ourselves really pushing the limits of what we could do with our gear. And I think that's maybe the takeaway from this episode before we really even dive into it. But you could say gear doesn't matter, and I would agree with you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you can't shoot awesome videos. If you don't have the piece of gear, it doesn't mean you can't accomplish what you want to. But it does matter. Mm-hmm. And I kind of realized that after we acquired a few of these pieces of gear that I've been really wanting, that gear does not inherently limit you from being a filmmaker or a creator of any kind, but it definitely influences the level at which you can do things and the scale at which you can do things. And it definitely matters. So I want to kind of dive into the opposite side of that narrative today of why gear does matter and why we continue to slowly but steadily, it's never really, up until we sold the Ursa, we really would only get like one piece of gear at a time. And It would be sometimes months in between those. Yeah. We're just grinding and we don't really have extra money right now and focus on other things. We're kind of, we make it work with what we have, but there really came a point where we had the money and we were at a point where we really, we were really pushing the limits of what our gear could do. So if you're wondering when you should get new gear, my recommendation would be when you've mastered and are absolutely maxing out the equipment that you currently have.
Yeah. I remember when I first started in this kind of endeavor, starting a company before I met you, I remember just like thinking I needed a ton of gear to feel validated as a company. Mm-hmm. So I would fill up my Amazon carts and I would buy Amazon bundles and I would buy all this extra stuff. And there's a lot of times that I didn't even use or open products that were included in some of these bundles. I'm like, oh, I got to have a drone, but I have to have all the trinkets that come with the drone. Mm-hmm. And I also need like some kind of stabilizer, but I didn't understand them at all. So I bought an Osmo when they first came out because you could run with it and get like these smooth, really cinematic, cool shots, but it was really poor quality, but I didn't understand that at the time. So I bought that. And then I bought like multiple lenses and multiple camera bodies, and I didn't understand why I should not use Canon or why I should use Canon. I didn't understand the profiling at all. I didn't understand how to color it. I didn't know what profile to even shoot in. So a lot of the times my work looked really inconsistent, but I was just when I first started shooting weddings, I actually like would set up a GoPro. I would use an Osmo. I would use my Canon 6D and my Canon T2i, and then sometimes even like borrow a camera to take along. So I'd be setting stuff on tripods. I'd be shooting like all these disgusting angles, and I'd be trying to put together a wedding film that, just looked like complete trash. But I thought like having all these cameras set up and having all this stuff made me look professional to everybody that would see me at the wedding, which I really think is quite the opposite now that I know. And I'll never show you guys those wedding films because they're absolutely trash. And I feel so bad for the couples that got them. But honestly, I probably charged like $100 or a couple $100, and they were, or maybe even free, but they were just close friends that just like, hey, we didn't think about doing this, but you can come shoot this. So maybe it's a blessing to them, but now what we do in comparison, it's, not even close. Maybe that's you're starting out, you're trying to, build up your gear and you're trying to feel more validated as a company, and you bring a lighting kit, you can bring multiple bodies and multiple lenses and really capture what you need to capture at those shoots and do it well. But I don't think that it's, it's about how much gear, it's the type of gear you have, and having more gear does matter, but really understanding like not just to have 5 different lights, but having all the same light family. Like we buy one company right now that we really lean into, and it's called Nanlite. And, we bought all kinds of stuff. And so we can dive into, what we've purchased recently and why. But so it's not really about how much or the amount of gear that you have, but it's really like the quality of gear that you have.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
do you just want to dive in? Like recently we've offloaded gear, we've given gear away, we've sold gear, we've gotten rid of a lot of stuff, and we're really focusing and narrowing down on the things that really matter that will help make our company run smoother, and our work will look better. So what is some of the stuff that we have actually moved into? Why did we purchase it? You want to kind of share that?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this when we explained why we're going to buy the Ursa, but now on the back end, I think I can speak to it even better. But one thing I don't want this podcast to do is discourage you, because if you don't have a ton of gear right now, that's totally okay. What I'm really trying to get at is there are people out there that, will start a business and they'll take out a loan and buy a ton of equipment that they think they need. Or like they are just fortunate and, they have parents that will buy them a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage you to really dive into what is the problem that you're trying to fix with that piece of gear. Because if you, like you said, if you just have 5 cameras and you're just blasting just because you have them and you think it will look cool or make you look professional, that's really not where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I felt when I was using the Ursa. I was like, this is a really cool piece of gear, but I feel like I don't have any of the things to support it, and I'm not really able to even use it the way it was intended. Mm-hmm. And so is this just something I'm trying to use to make myself look cooler or look more professional?
Yep.
And so we sold that, and luckily we were able to get every dime that we spent on it back, which was really nice. Yep. And we were able to really invest into lighting and audio, which I think are super important. Honestly, if you have a camera that shoots 4K, I would just focus on lighting and audio right now. Mm-hmm. I think that it will make a bigger difference in the quality of your work going from one crappy light to one good light, or one good light to 3 good lights, than it will from you moving from a camera that shoots 4K to a camera that shoots 6K or 8K or anything else. Yeah. Especially if you're in a similar industry as us, where you're delivering content primarily for the web or for websites. The Sony A7 IIIs that we use are still good enough for what we do. Yep. And we've been able to improve our work by investing in audio and investing in lighting. So the lights that we did purchase, we got a 3-light kit of the Nanlite 300B, which I would recommend to pretty much anyone that can afford them. I think that it's currently the best bang for your buck in terms of a bicolor, just super powerful light that has a Bowens mount attachment. Mm-hmm. I took it on a shoot yesterday that was in a house with huge windows. It had a ton of natural lighting, but it wasn't necessarily focused where I wanted it to be. And I just took the 300B and just blasted it into the white ceiling to give more focused soft light where I wanted it. And I was able to really do some cool looks that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So in that scenario, before I had these lights, I would have had to just rely on the window light. Yeah. And I would have had to probably position him in an angle that wasn't perfectly ideal. And at the end of the day, the client probably wouldn't have noticed. So that's where you can, there is validity to gear doesn't matter. Did I need that light for the shoot yesterday? No, not at all. I could have done the shoot just fine. The client would have left us a 5-star review if I didn't have that light. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was able to look at the situation and say, what do I want to do most? And can I do it? Yes, I can, because I have the gear for it. Right. And so that's where gear can really does make a difference. Like we shot a music video a couple weeks ago, and we brought our kit for the first time. Mm-hmm. And we were just able to do things that we just couldn't have done otherwise. Yep. And overall, the shots would have probably been the same, but they just wouldn't have looked as good, or it wouldn't have been everything that we could have made it. Yeah. And so I feel like what we've done as we acquire new gear, it just helps us make the product incrementally better. Mm-hmm. And also, it's great to get new gear because you're able to learn you're able to learn that there are more options and see other options because you have more tools at your disposal to make those things happen that you couldn't otherwise.
Yeah, it's really cool because I'm even understanding lighting a little bit better now, owning a lot more of it. And we go into a room and we can really do whatever we want with our bi-colored, really bright lights. When you can really match the room, we can leave the overheads on if we want to, or we can kill them and, just rely on daylight and window light, or we can cover the windows. There's a lot more options and a lot more opportunity to make the shot look a lot better with having a really solid light kit. And before I didn't really get it. Like we started off with like these crappy LED panels and we used the crap out of them. We used them to backlight people, front light people. I mean, we used them for everything. They were newer, like they were $150 for like 4 of them or something. And
we used those for like a year.
Yeah, we used them for a long time, but it's not quality light and people complain about, poor quality LED lighting because it gives off weird colors. And I do agree with that at some point, but I mean, we got by with them and they worked out great, but we used them to their fullest potential and then realized, wow, we need to get something newer. And so we got the 120D, the Aperture 120D, which was like a massive upgrade. And we're like, finally a professional light. But the issue with that was we were always having to gel it all the time and, match it with, fold over the
gel. Yeah. We'd have to like double it up
to like try to match the lighting in every room and bulb and office and workspace and place that you shoot is different. So that was always an issue. And we only had one light. So we'd have to rely on either the light that was available in the room and then try to match our 120D with it and then try to make the best out of that, which sometimes I think it was just easier just to rely on the natural light coming through the window.
Yeah, we definitely chose to several times because you have to weigh the options. Like this is going to take us 20 minutes to set up the shot. Probably can't do it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had a bicolor light, and that's where the Pavo tubes are they are just killer for that type of thing. If you're in a run and gun situation, having some tube lights that you can just carry. I mean, I used them on the wedding this last weekend and I just held them.
Yeah.
I bounced them into the ceiling at daylight and it filled in and got us the contrast levels that we wanted because the only source in the room was a window.
Yeah.
And it was too moody without that little bit of fill. And so, bicolor lights are amazing. And just the flexibility that they offer. And honestly, they're more accessible now. So if you're in the market for a light, I would recommend just going with the bicolor LED because, especially if you shoot in different situations, like we do with weddings and everything like that. So something that you mentioned there, and I feel like if we've done anything well as a company, and this is probably mostly credit to you and not me. If we've done anything well as a company, we have waited until we're overdue for gear to get it, for the most part.
Yeah.
Aside from the Ursa, which was kind of a passion purchase, and it was a great deal, and it didn't end up screwing us over in the long run because we made our money back on it. But we really do get to the point where we can't move forward and can't get better as a company without adding gear. And that's what I would say I would encourage you to do. And the reason for that, it's the same as like if somebody gives you something versus if you work your butt off to pay for it. I am so appreciative of the kit and the lights and the equipment that we have now. And I'm so glad that we didn't splurge on it before we were ready because I honestly don't think that I would appreciate it. I don't think that I would care for it. And I don't think I would be as proud of it as I am now because I know that we made the most of what we had before buying new stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not, the same for everyone. But I know there's something to be said about when someone buys you something or, when you feel like if something doesn't feel 100% deserved, there's almost like, I don't know, when something does feel 100% deserved, there's this level of like respect and honor for it, I think. And it's really fulfilling. Yeah. If that makes sense.
And if we would have made purchases, because we always knew we needed more gear, but if we would have just made these uneducated purchases earlier on, we would have had a ton of stuff that just didn't make sense to have.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know if we wanted to get and buy hot lights where like we would have bought like a bunch of Source 4s and then not that they're bad to have. And like we, use our churches all the time if we need them because there's a bunch in our storage closet that we use and we love them and they're great and they've worked out really well for like some music video shoots and stuff. But who knows like what company we would have invested in, if they would have been any good, if, you know, the quality would have been trash, but we spent all this money and couldn't, you know, resell it. The value of it went down. So like the fact that we only like, I don't know, I feel like you really dive into products and like learn about them before we like pull the trigger.
Yeah, I try to.
We kind of like have this trust now where like, hey, this piece of gear came out, this company has really great reviews, like it's doing really well. Let's look into it. Okay, cool. And we check it out. We follow their page. We kind of see what they do. And we're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe we should invest into it. Because it's easy to like go on YouTube and find all these reviews and find all these opinions about why you should buy this and why you shouldn't buy this. But at the end of the day, it's all opinions anyway.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so we're just like, oh, let's try it out ourselves. And again, like with these Pavo tubes that we use with every shoot, every podcast, I mean, we love them. We get compliments on them all the time. Like, hey, how do you do that? But I mean, just for a few $100, like, of course we wanted to buy the Asteras a long time ago, the Titan tubes or whatever. And they would be cool and we will buy them someday, I'm sure. But right now these work, you know, and
absolutely.
And they're really, really great. And, they're so simple. We put them in a little sleeved bag and we bring them everywhere. They're lightweight. They're so simple. And they like save the day all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just did a music video and we lit the entire stage with just Pavo tubes.
Yeah.
And like we just delivered the film and honestly, it looks freaking awesome.
Yeah, it looks
and
great.
it was a public bar venue that it's not like we could go up and install lighting or even have a light stand in the shot. Like that was not an option because we're getting the full stage. There's nowhere to put a light stand. We're shooting wide. And so yeah, the Pavo tubes are amazing. Would 10 out of 10 recommend them to anyone.
Yeah.
And something that you said was if we had gone out and bought all of this gear, we may have made a mistake if we had bought a bunch of gear before we really knew how to use it. And I think that's super true. And that's another reason why I think that you should wait until you have a dire need that you're looking to solve with a specific piece of gear. And if you don't know what that need is, if you don't know what problem this piece of gear is going to solve for you, you probably shouldn't buy it.
Yep.
But if we had just gone out and bought 3 Aperture 120Ds back in the day, I still would have bought the 300Bs because we would be locked into daylight.
Yep.
There's a lot of features on the 120D that, you know, when it came out 3 years ago or 4 years ago, it was great, but things move along fastly. That was not a word, but technology moves quickly. There are always new things coming out. And so you don't want to buy equipment that you don't need because not only is it going to depreciate, but it's going to get outdated fast.
Yeah.
Whereas if you only buy things when you absolutely need them, you can keep buying them the latest thing. And yeah, eventually it'll be outdated, but you're not going to be sitting there with 4-year-old gear that you barely use because you didn't know how to. And it's all outdated now. And there's better stuff out now that you could have bought for less if you had just waited.
Yeah. Gear is really intimidating. And from starting a company by myself, I had no idea what to buy. I had no idea where to start. I watched way too many YouTube videos. I had people that I loved that I followed. And then I had people that, you know, were cutting edge, just like brand new, but just killing the game, but in a new, fresh way. But then I had these like old industry guys that I would follow and really be inspired by. And I just like, it can be so overwhelming. And you're like, well, I don't even want to. I'm just going to buy a camera, use it, and that's it. But like, you can really find a lot of knowledge by just like talking shop with other guys in the industry,
for sure,
and just like getting insight on stuff and all the stuff that we talk about on this podcast. Like, you guys can reach out to us and hit us up, and all the gear that we use and have purchased is all linked in this description. And so like, yeah, if you ever have questions, like hit us up, let us know. We have been hit up dozens and dozens and dozens of times and still are today about what cameras we use, what lenses, why we've chosen to use primes all these years, why we've chosen to use Sony A7 IIIs exclusively since we've really taken off in this endeavor. And then also like lighting and all that stuff. We don't know everything. We don't act like we know everything, but we're very willing and open to help people get on the right track, buy the right gear, and move into something that's really going to help their business grow.
Let us know if you have any questions, or if there's a piece of gear that you can't live without that you need to tell us about, we would love to hear it.
Yes.
We're obviously open to ideas because we don't know everything and we don't know about every piece of gear out there. So let us know if there's something that is a must-have for you that we didn't mention. But thank you so much for joining us. Hope this has helped and been informative. As always, if you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you would like to see any of our other content, we're releasing podcasts every Wednesday, bonus content on Fridays, and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yep.
If you're on Apple Podcasts, it would mean the world to us if you would leave us a rating. We'd love to hear your feedback. But that is it for the Glory Boys for now.
Yep.
And until the next episode, peace out.
See you guys.